and welcome to my channel where I make dishes inspired by some of my favorite video game characters. Today's dish is inspired by lightningfarron from the Final Fantasy XIII series. So when talking about my appreciation and connection to lightning, I have to out myself as a Final Fantasy fan in an embarrassing way. My first Final Fantasy game was not one of the greats, and it wasn't even Final Fantasy XIII. It was Lightning Returns. I was obsessed with Kingdom Hearts as a child and wanted to play Final Fantasy, but my parents wouldn't let me rent them because they were all rated T for teens. They were worried enough by the fact that Kingdom Hearts 2 had an E10 and up rating. So I always longingly adored Final Fantasy and knew I would play it one day, but that would have to wait until I was older and able to purchase a game myself. Time passed, and I finally got a job as I got older, and I was able to go out and buy games that I wanted to. I bought a PS3 and searched Final Fantasy to see what was the newest game to buy, and I saw Lightning Returns was coming out. I clicked on the initial trailer, which is basically the introduction CGI cutscene from the game, and as a girl who loved pink, my jaw was basically on the floor looking at Lightning. She was so pretty, cool, strong, and she had pink hair. Sign me up. I didn't realize that Lightning Returns was the third installment in the series, but I started playing it regardless. Honestly, I know that it's not an amazing game and not a great Final Fantasy game by any means, but I personally ended up enjoying my time with it a lot. After playing through the game, I finally went back to play 13 and then 13-2 and really enjoyed them as well, especially 13-2. While the 13 series is certainly not my favorite FF game I've played, it will always hold a special place in my heart, and I have Lightning to thank for that. She's an iconic Final Fantasy character for a reason, and I mean, come on, she even has a Louis Vuitton collaboration. When thinking of a dish for Lightning, I knew I wanted to make something savory rather than sweet. While I know she likes to enjoy sweets just like anyone else, I get the feeling that she would prefer nutritious and protein-packed meals to help fuel her for the battlefield, so she'd try to avoid the extra calories that desserts provide as much as she could. I love her long and wavy hair, and this kind of reminded me of a long noodled pasta dish. The other big thing I couldn't get past was pink, and honestly, that's probably because it's my favorite color. It plays such a role in her character design, so I wanted to go all out on pink. Luckily, there is a super delicious pink sauce that you can easily pair with pasta, and there's also a very popular protein that has a gorgeous tint of pink: salmon. Altogether, I went with a pink sauce and salmon pasta that was so delicious and creamy, hinting to Lightning, or Claire's, softer side. It was packed with gorgeous pink salmon and spinach for some extra vitamins, and I'm sure Lightning would love a taste. Hey Lightning, can you finish a bowl of this pasta? It's not a question of can or can't. There are some things in life you just do. Here's what you'll need to make your own. About 1 pound of skinless salmon, olive oil, salt, black pepper, 1 lemon, mafalda noodles or any long noodle, unsalted butter, 1 shallot, garlic, tomato sauce or puree, dried basil, heavy cream, whole milk, Parmesan cheese, spinach, and parsley. The operation for the mission will generally go like this. We'll cook the pasta, bake the salmon, make the sauce, and then combine all three. So to start, let's get a large pot of salted water onto our stovetop and start heating it on high until it's boiling. Feel free to place a lid onto your pot to get the water to boil quicker. Once the water is boiling, we'll drop in about 12 ounces of our mafalda noodles, or again, any long pasta of your choice, and we'll cook, stirring occasionally. Cook the pasta according to the package directions, and once the noodles are done cooking, reserve about 1 cup of the pasta water and then drain the pasta. Rinse the pasta in cold water briefly just to make sure you stop the cooking process. That way your noodles don't get too soggy and squishy. And once rinsed and drained, pour the noodles back into your pot and set them aside until later. As soon as you start heating your pot of water for the noodles, you'll also preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and grab a small baking dish and lightly spray it with cooking spray. You can also use a baking sheet and cover it in parchment paper. Grab your salmon fillets from the fridge and pat them dry with a paper towel if they are a bit too wet. Place the fish onto your baking dish and then drizzle with some olive oil. Season all sides of the salmon with salt and pepper to your taste. Then cut a lemon in half. Zest one of the halves of lemon over the fish, and once the fish is zested, juice that lemon half over the fish. Reserve your other half of the lemon for later. Once the fish are swimming in the spices and lemony goodness, you can slide the dish into the oven to bake for around 15 to 25 minutes until the fish is cooked through to an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit. The time can vary significantly based on how large your cuts of fish are, so while 15 to 25 minutes is a general guide, make sure to check the temperature with a thermometer. Once the fish is cooked, you can remove the baking dish from the oven and allow the salmon to rest for at least 5 minutes before cutting into smaller pieces. We don't want to break the fish up right away, or else we'll release all of the juices prematurely and have a less deliciously moist salmon. After waiting more than 5 minutes, you can break up the fish by just using 2 forks, as it should be insanely soft and flaky on the inside. Now, around the time that your pasta is finishing cooking, we'll get ready to start making the pink sauce. You'll need to quickly mince just a couple ingredients for the sauce. So here I am mincing some garlic, at least 5 cloves, and then here I am mincing the largest shallot known to man. If you haven't shredded your Parmesan already, now's also a good time to do this. You'll need about 1.5 cups worth, and once you're done grating, you can place it into the fridge until later. Pre-shredded cheese is totally fine in a pinch, but you might get a smoother texture of your sauce if you shred your own Parmesan. With our aromatics ready, we'll start heating a large skillet over medium heat. As the surface gets warm, we'll add in 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter and allow it to melt. Once melted, we'll toss in our minced shallot and sauté the shallot, stirring occasionally for around 5 minutes. You should see the shallot becoming nicely softened and more translucent. After these 5 minutes, you'll add in your minced garlic and cook for another minute-ish, still stirring occasionally to make sure that nothing burns. At this point, we're good to add in about 1.5 cups of tomato sauce or puree, as well as 1 teaspoon of dried basil. Stir and then season the sauce to your taste with salt and pepper. You'll allow the sauce to simmer for just a few minutes, and then you can add in some good stuff. A 1/2 cup of heavy cream, a 1/2 cup of whole milk, and our 1.5 cups of Parmesan cheese. Now, I ended up making a little change to the recipe. I didn't originally add the 1 cup of spinach until later in the cooking process, but I would definitely recommend adding it here with the rest of the dairy ingredients. Throwing in the spinach now will ensure that it heats a little bit more and it'll be less likely to be undercooked and crunchy. We want the spinach to be softer and more wilted. So even though you don't see me adding in the spinach yet until later, I absolutely recommend doing it now, and I've updated the physical recipe card to reflect this. Anyways, with the cream, milk, cheese, and spinach now in the skillet, keep heating the mixture while stirring occasionally until the cheese is fully melted. You'll watch as the sauce will slowly blend into this really pretty salmon pink color. Once the sauce is well combined and mixed, reduce the heat to low and taste and season with more salt and pepper if needed. The bulk of the mission is over now, we just have to combine everything. If you're like me, it might be a bit cramped in your skillet as you combine everything. To this skillet of sauce, we'll add in our cooked mafalda noodles and our cooked salmon, and then we'll grab the remaining lemon half we reserved earlier. Juice the lemon half over the pasta and sauce, and then stir everything until the pasta noodles are coated and everything is mixed well. If your salmon and noodles have become slightly cool over time, this should heat everything up back to a comforting temperature. I completely forgot to do this as I was recording, but now would be the time to add in any of your reserved pasta water if you wish. The pasta water helps if you feel like the pasta dish is slightly too dry or the sauce is too thick. Once everything is beautifully combined, you can finally scoop some of the pasta into your serving dishes and garnish with additional parsley and Parmesan to your heart's content. With that, we're all ready to dig in. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm a pasta fiend. I'm also a fiend for the color pink, so I felt so happy as I ate this pasta. Everything is beautifully seasoned and flavored, and everything goes together so well. The pasta is such a fun shape to eat, and the ridges hold on to the delicious pink sauce. The sauce is pretty to look at and even more enjoyable to taste, as it's this perfect mix of creamy and comforting from the cheese and tangy and savory from the tomatoes. Because the salmon is so tender, it breaks up as you stir, and you pretty much get some in every bite, and it helps fill you up but feels simultaneously clean and fresh. There's plenty to love in this pasta dish, and I'm sure if Lightning had some on her birthday, she would have no reason to say it was the worst birthday ever. When I think of Lightning and making meals, I have this personal feeling that she used to really love cooking because she has very faint memories of helping hand her father tools in the kitchen, and she used to love to help her mom as they made dinner together. Once they both had passed, she started to avoid cooking because it brought back some painful yet beautiful memories. Because of this, Sarah would be the main one to take on the cooking role in the household. Sarah would always try to get Lightning to help more to turn these bitter memories into sweet memories, but she would always be unable to make eye contact with her and would say she was too busy. No matter how many times Lightning said no, Sarah would never give up, and although she might act annoyed, Lightning absolutely loved this quality of her sister. As she'd finally sit down to eat her meal that was lovingly crafted by Sarah, she would even think to herself how much better she was in the kitchen compared to her parents, and this was evidence that she was growing into an amazing young woman. Sarah ended up creating this dish one day on the anniversary of their parents' wedding. Salmon was her father's favorite dinner to make, and pasta was her mother's favorite. She combined the two in their honor, and she slid the plate over to Lightning. "Enjoy, Claire." Sarah would smile, and Lightning would be speechless. She'd be even more speechless once she took a bite, and she'd have to hide a tear coming from her eye to not break down her tough, protective cocoon she had built up around herself for so long. The recipe card is in the video description if you'd like a more quick and concise version to give it a try. Like if you want a bite, subscribe for more geeky treats, and comment what foods Lightning reminds you of. Thanks for following along.